Last year, Battersea Power Station in West London reopened after its $10 billion 10-year redevelopment programme to transform it from a derelict wasteland into a mixed-use site of residential, office and retail space. In what was once a grimy electric turbine room, you can now buy luxury electric cars, though to be honest I was more interested in the bookshop and the Lego store personally. But my main reason for going was that back in 2012 as part of Open House London, I was lucky enough to go on one of the final public tours of the site before it was closed off for construction works. And I wanted to go back 11 years later to retrace my steps and try and capture the same photos from the same locations to see what had changed. So my journey began on the riverfront at the northwest corner of the site, where surprisingly little had changed because the streetlights were still in the same position, and I was able to work out exactly where I'd been standing when I took this photo in the queue to get in 11 years ago. However, as soon as I got under the railway bridge, I could see the first big difference. These magnificent cranes on the pier for unloading coal from barges have been completely removed, and the old pier turned into a trendy bar area. Now I'm sure the cranes were removed for a very sensible reason, like they were probably falling down after years of neglect, but it was still sad to see these once mighty machines had disappeared completely. Turning to look at the power station from directly north of it, you start to get a sense of how much of it has actually changed, although the weather was being very obliging by being exactly the same as my previous visit. But before we go inside, a quick history of the building might be useful to find our way around. Although we typically picture the power station as a whole building, and indeed it was master planned that way by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, that's the same guy that designed the iconic British telephone box, it was actually built in two halves. Site A was completed in the 1930s, then everyone got a bit distracted by World War II, and Site B wasn't completed until the 1950s. Each side has a turbine hall, with the interiors reflecting the eras in which they were built, the massive optimism of the 1930s versus the post-war austerity of the 1950s. Between them is the enormous Boilerhouse, with two chimneys on each side of the station. Due to advances in technology and the rising cost of running the station, Site A closed in 1975, with Site B closing in 1983, and the building was left abandoned until 2012. In 2012, my first stop on the tour was one of the most spectacular parts of the power station, the Boilerhouse, which was also the most ruined part of the building. It was just utterly awe-inspiring being inside this huge empty space with the exposed steel skeleton of the building towering above you, even before you looked up at the chimneys. If you're wondering how this part of the building ended up in such a ruined state, in the late 1980s there was a plan by John Broome, the then owner of Alton Towers, to turn the site into a theme park. The plan failed due to some quite significant financial issues, but by then the roof had already been removed and the boiler house stripped out to facilitate construction, and it was left open to the elements ever since. By the way, if you think that the ruined window at the south end of the building looks familiar, it's actually the background for this iconic Batman image from The Dark Knight, as they filmed the bombed out warehouse scenes here. If we jump forward to today, the boiler house looks like this. As part of the development, they've slotted a large office project into the middle of the building, filling the void. It does mean I can't get in there to recreate the shots from the middle, but it was still able to photograph the windows at each end as they're part of the public shopping mall. Moving over to the Turbine Hall for Site A, I have the opposite problem. In 2012 I couldn't get in here as the site wasn't safe for the general public, so I could only look in from the central boiler house. So I've taken what I think are sort of equivalent photos now I can get inside. Actually, one shot I quite like from 2012 is this view of a train passing as seen through all the holes in the building, and here's the same view today. Also in 2012 you could see these murals on the wall, which were a 21st century edition of part of a birthday party that was held in the ruins apparently. Those have been completely removed as part of the renovation. As a side note, while the general public can't access the beautiful Art Deco control room for Site A, you can sort of peek in through the windows from the top floor of the shopping centre. This has been used for quite a few film sets as well. Moving across to the Site B Turbine Hall, this I could access in both 2012 and 2023, and it really is the part of the building where I could appreciate the changes that have been made by standing in the exact same spots. the end of the 2012 tour, we left the building via the service access in the south wall. Yeah, that's just totally gone now. And on the other side of the hole, this was the view. And this is the view now. The reason it's changed so much is actually because, as part of the redevelopment, a new service road was introduced around the building one floor up from the ground. You can most clearly see this at the south entrance, where the pedestrian access from the service road is on a bridge above the lower walkway at the old ground level. So a better comparison is actually this. You can see the height difference by looking at the position of the cream band in the brickwork. It's much closer to street level in the new photos. And one final shot to show everything has changed. Here's the view from the railway bridge on Battersea Park Road in 2012. And here's the same view today. Overall, it is great to see the huge building be given a new lease of life, and it can definitely be quite fun to explore. There are also a few additional new features, like a glass lift that pops out the top of one of the iconic chimneys for some nice views of the area. But I'm still really glad I got the chance to see the strangely beautiful ruins before the renovation. It was definitely a just very surreal and very impressive thing to be able to wander around. Oh, and it's nice to see that pigeons are still living in the central turbine hall even after the renovation.